Welcome to Inside Marketing with MarketSurge, your front row seat to the boldest ideas and smartest strategies in the marketing game. Your host is Hansen, Chief Growth Officer at MarketSurge.
Hello and welcome back to Inside Marketing with MarketSurge. Today, I'm joined by David Pratter, co-founder of .fun, a creative and growth-focused agency helping brands not only look good, but grow with intention. David leads visual storytelling and brand execution at .fun, bringing ideas to life through websites, video, and creative systems that are designed to convert, not just impress. What makes David especially interesting is that he's lived both sides of the equation, from freelance web design, where looking good didn't always translate into results, to now leading teams that align branding, performance, and growth metrics under one roof. We're going to talk about creativity as a growth lever, where brands get stuck between design and demand, and what actually matters when you're building something meant to scale. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Reed. Appreciate you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. And we've gotten to know each other over the last few months. David has a fantastic website and has a lot of great things. So I'd recommend going to .fun.co to look at what they have and how they have arranged their services. And one aspect I like is that rather than describe the individual services in your offering in the top menu, it's look good, feel good, and is it work good? Is that right? Or
run good.
Run good. There we go. So you are the look good lead, which is, and that's probably the one everybody wanted. What does that actually mean in practice? And how do you make sure that looking good also equates to like business growth for your clients?
Awesome. Yeah. So look good equates to genuinely anything that needs to look good. And that can range from starting from the ground up, doing the branding for a new company or a refresh, logos, full brand guidelines, or it can look like doing all the design for a website or the UI UX for a new app that someone's doing. So really it equates to what it's called. Anything that needs to look good for our clients is coming across my desk. And how it equates to results is really, I always believe as an artist that one of the best things you can do for your business is stand out by having strong branding or spend time investing in creativity based around the values of your business. Now, what's cool about the way .fun's set up is that I don't necessarily need to do the sit down and figure out what is going to be the most, let's say, revenue generating decision as far as content goes or as far as graphics go. That's something that Pearl, the leader of Feel Good, can decide for me ahead of time. Tell me, here's the kind of graphics that we think are the most connected to their target audience, our client's target audience. And then I get to go and have a strong artistic brief where I just get to focus on making it look as good as possible based on those directions. So that's how I would say it converts, yeah.
No, that's great. And so, if there's a balance between looking good and feeling good and running good, where do you think a lot of brands that come to you are most deficient? Like where are you having to do the most rebalancing?
Where are we having to do the most rebalancing is a great question. It really depends case by case. We've had a lot of clients come in recently actually where it's only a feel good contract. Because their websites are good enough, so they just want ads management, a few blogs a month, technical SEO help, which is technically run good as far as things are really laid out. But where I think we deliver most efficiently is when someone comes in and is open to all three sides, where we can say, company has okay branding, a decent website, their ads and SEO, are maybe up and running, but not as efficient as they would like. And we want to be starting to show up in AI searches. We want to start having strong technical SEO, getting to really turn on the whole team. Let's have a kind of a exponential effect. I think that's what you're asking, like where is fun the most efficient? Yeah, it's when we can all work together because, well, Run Good is also our project manager. So when he's actually involved in the project, he also has a little bit more chance to have our Jira set up really well for the project because he's actually on the meetings. And so that's the most efficient is when we can really do the full service offering.
Okay. Now you used to be a freelance web designer prior to .fun. And so you've got many years of experience designing beautiful products. What do you think is the difference between working freelance as you did and working for a larger group that's a little bit more comprehensive. What does that enable you to do? How does that help your job work better?
Yeah. Well, to call back the project manager, I was doing the project management myself. It was really underwhelming. If I was focusing on a design, then I wasn't updating my tickets at the end of the day. So having a team where one of us is extremely focused on project management has been a game changer. That's one of the biggest things actually that changed between freelance and an agency for me. And I'm sure there's a lot of freelancers out there who do a great job with their project management. But actually, probably a fairly low percentage, maybe 20% of freelancers, I'd imagine, do a great job keeping track of every ticket. That's been one of the biggest differences. However, the other side of it is that, like you said in the intro, is going from being able to say, yeah, I can make you a great website. And it sounds like that's what you think is going to be important for your business right now. And so, yeah, I bet it'll be a great addition or a great development for your business. To now, yeah, we're going to build you a really good website. And we're going to make sure that the business events or key events that are actually going to grow your business are happening through a whole different department, which is handling ads and SEO, conversion rate optimization, and the such. So it just feels like a much more well-rounded offering because I'm not just saying, look at that beautiful website that you have now and good luck. Or actually, towards the end of my freelancing journey, I was actually starting to dip my toe in ads and say like, okay, all the clients I make websites for are now asking, how do we get leads in? So then I was, okay, let me go take that over. Versus now we just have people specialized in every department delivering each of those at a high level rather than learning on the fly.
Okay. So now, David, you're a real artist. You mentioned that you come from a artistic background, and some artists maybe push back. Often, artistic instincts are at opposition to some of the data-driven decisions that need to be made to optimize a website for functionality or optimize a digital product to sell or perform a function. How do you feel like that's a false trade-off, that creativity is at odds with the constraints of functionality and performance, or is that something that can be harmonious frequently?
I think that there's truth to it because early on in my website adventure, I partnered with a 3D artist who we just aimed at making the craziest websites we could. And what that led to was a very impactful experience. However, often our performance metrics or like Google page speeds would suffer and things like that. And I think that's a trap that a lot of people run into early on into the web design specifically. I believe user experience is just as important at something having an impactful look. So a very clear journey on a website or an app can be just as important as the flashy animations that keep you engaged. For example, Duolingo does a great job with having animations that carry you through. However, they don't sacrifice any amount of fluid pass through of the actual content of the app. I do believe that some companies undervalue potent creativity. I believe I've run across a lot of companies who say like, prove to me that this creative lift is going to do the numbers in advance. And sometimes that's not possible. However, having the faith that encouraging creativity, letting people execute on ideas that maybe even sound wild within a company can bring some of the biggest results possible to a company. So, what I would
Interesting. So, I'm no designer, and I think my instincts are like opposite of a designer. And I say that not as a humble brag by any means. I say it as like a major deficiency. But I have often wondered, are there trends between the clients that come at you and say like, prove that this creative lift is worth it, versus those that come in and say like, I would love something beautiful and original? Like, are there certain industries that they come from or certain personality types? Like, what have you observed between those two instincts among clients?
The people who give creative license often have some amount of creativity inherent to the industry.
Okay.
Tattoo artist, a software company who focuses on ensuring creative alignment across departments and locations, an app marketplace for creators to connect with jobs. So people like that are like, we want to really shine from the creative perspective. The people who tend to focus on data-driven things are often just in the software development or run a B2B. Actually, we recently had one of those client industries that I mentioned was a B2B company, and yet we're asking for wild creativity. So one of the things we actually had to consult was like, if you're trying to convince executive people, you may not want to go this crazy. Um,
Yeah,
and
interesting.
we can reserve that for maybe a B2C offering, which they didn't have. But obviously, it's not a prescriptive answer. There's different decision makers in each industry that might decide we want more creativity or less creativity. But for the most part, if someone's staring at data all day, then they probably want the data first. And if someone has a creative job description or their business thrives on the idea of being respected from a creative standpoint, then those people will usually give a little bit more creative license.
Okay. Well, I like the way your firm is positioned because, there's you yourself. You're obviously conscious of both of these forces in creative design, but then you've also got the other pillars in your agency that help, push for functionality and results. And so the creatives that tend to go for abstract and originality, you're well prepared to have that conversation and say like, maybe let's rein it in a little bit and make this more user friendly, for instance. And I mean, I love that. I think that's a great balance to have. So now you've worked with a lot of different kinds of clients, it sounds like. So you've worked with some B2B, some B2C. What have been some of the most important lessons you've learned as you've been building up the agency?
One of our biggest ones was we had this like very, I wouldn't call it bleeding heart, but we had a desire to really give back to other businesses and took on two or three pro bono clients off the bat, basically revenue share or performance incentive based clients right off the bat of forming the agency about a year ago now. And we just wouldn't have done that looking back. Definitely
Sure.
something we want to have in our offering. For example, in a year or so, once our balance sheet is feeling a little better, being able to say, okay, let's go find a nonprofit that needs a new website and do this practically for free. That's absolutely something we want to do. However, as we started closing larger retainer clients, and our hours became worth a very specific amount of dollars, it was hard to say, okay, let's go spend time now on the client who we have like maybe in 6 months we should start getting 15% of their sale, etc. So it just led to, and two of them were friends who own businesses, and one was a client that I had had in my freelance days who was the one who I had played around with ads towards the end of our engagement. And we're still with them, but we're kind of restructuring this year saying, okay, in order to make progress, we don't need just this pro bono. We need to have some kind of like labor pool, sort of like a dollar amount that you put towards labor from people inside of our company to spend time moving objectives forward. Otherwise, we're kind of deciding between let's go spend time on a retainer client or let's go actually spend our money to move forward a one of these pro bono or smaller projects. So I think we're learning from the lesson, but that's one of the biggest ones was like cash early on was extremely
Yeah.
important so that we could all go full time.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Now, as a designer, for a while now, people's attention spans have been getting shorter. Their eyes dart across screens faster. They click away from pages faster. But then the last 2, 3 years, AI has been a force, I'm sure, that affects some of your thinking around design. How do you account for that in the products you design? What's your approach in light of some of these recent developments?
Yeah, it has been a pretty wild ride having pretty much decided to go all in on being an artist and design about 4 years before this AI boom.
Mm-hmm.
And how we balance it. So I personally avoid using AI in my day to day entirely. And that's because I believe that it'll be extra valuable for me to retain critical thinking and creative problem solving for myself. Now, that's not to say our company uses no AI, but for my personal workflow, I do my best to just be like, okay, if I'm about to sit down and brainstorm, I'm just going to sit down and brainstorm. If I need to write a contract, I'll absolutely use AI. But I digress. Made the assessment pretty early on, maybe like 2.5 years ago, that especially as AI grows, the human touch will become more and more valuable. So no matter what, and actually you'll see it as the very first line in our website, it is human first. So even if we're going to use AI somewhere along a workflow, not necessarily in the design side, but in the app development side and anything, first it's a human that sits down and ideates and figures things out. And then we can use AI to further things along. In our design workflow, it's actually the only place we've been using AI regularly at all is in the mood boarding phase.
Okay.
So when we sit down for an idea, if we can't find on Pinterest a modern, sleek, yellow and green look that we can show to a client and be like, this is kind of like one way we could go, here's another way we could go. Because what we used to use was Pinterest, Dribble, Behance to build these mood boards that say like, here's moody, gothic, old style, here's modern, sleek, etc. And sometimes when we can't find exactly what we're looking for, we'll use AI to put one tile on a mood board or a few tiles on a mood board. But from there, it's no AI for the design process. And that to me is something I want to maintain. Now, I also actually have my own LLC called Align by Design, which I'm going to ensure that no AI ever touches. One is a growth agency and is like, really, we just need to be as efficient, effective, full for our clients as possible. So we absolutely will use AI where necessary. But I believe that soulful art will become exponentially more valuable the more and more AI capability increases. And that's because if AI can make you a website that's passable today, then what sets you apart from anyone who could just type in that prompt? And so my theory is just keep committing to the art, keep committing to the fact that human creativity will continue to be very, very valuable, and even more so the more AI expands.
That's awesome. Well, that's going to be a great quote for the social media promoting this episode after. I think that is a bold statement. And, I want you to be right because, AI is kind of encroaching on everything. And, I want to support creatives and artists like yourself that are truly talented and truly care. So I understand that you have a product launch coming up in February for .fun. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what's the future for your agency?
Yeah, this is a great segue because while in the creative process we are not using much AI at all, the two products that we would be launching in the beginning of February and the second part after are AI products. And the reason we made them was because actually of the pro bono clients, and not because of, but oftentimes we would have a client come in and say like, hey, can you do this for me? Or like, can you guys handle this for me? And when it was such a small project, it was pretty much a no. And what we wanted to create and what our aim is with these two products is to take AI and the value and the power of AI and put it into the hands of small business owners. And one of the products is a simple AI receptionist. So 11 labs built into a AI answering machine, which will have your company's context, questions it needs to answer, integrations with a calendar, and it will allow for small business owners. So we're aiming at the home services market first. So someone like a plumber who's out working all day to have someone answering their phone. And it'll perform actions from there. The initial launch will be mainly just a calendar integration, and we'll go from there. Now, the second one, and the one that I'm a little more excited about even, is something we've been using to save a lot of time inside of .fun, which is a AI project management tool. And so, like I said, in my 4 years of freelance, it was, I don't think I effectively used project management a single project. It was all in my head, all written down. I didn't really ticket things. And when we started the agency, my bad habits carried over. I wasn't ticketing. I was keeping everything in my head. And Alvin, the leader of Run Good, who's like run good as any software development and AI really at this point. And he built a bot that we can now just tag in our Discord or Slack or what have you and say, hey, everything we just talked about, organize it into tickets. So that would be pretty loose and probably not have a very high hit rate. But actually, I've been pretty surprised at how vague we can be with it. And literally just conversationally say like, so everything we just talked about, put in these tickets. If it messes up, hey, actually, sorry, wrong board. This needs to be a subtask. And you just kind of like go from there. Now, there will be a guidelines of like, here's how to make it do what you want from the first message. So say like, okay, you need to make sure you have your board, tell it what board it is, what priority, who it should be assigned to, etc. But a lot of people, at least me and Pearl, look good and feel good, just kind of like throw things at it and then slowly refine. We say like, okay, what does everything that we just talked about look like in a ticket? Okay, this one should be assigned to this, this, and this, and this. And it just makes it all so much more enjoyable and everything gets ticketed. So
That's awesome. So that'll be available for your clients?
that'll be available for our clients and also just to be purchased as a subscription.
Very cool.
The AI answering
Very cool.
machine and project management tool.
Well, that sounds fantastic. Well, I'd love to see the progress you've made. You guys have an awesome agency. You're in Austin, Texas.
All three of us in Austin.
Which is a really cool town. I lived nearby for a few years in Round Rock, and no, that's awesome. I would definitely point anybody your direction. Now, remind us where people can find you if they'd like to work with you.
Yeah, .fun.co. The website's undergoing a lot of updates. We'll have a mega menu pretty soon here. We're breaking things down into like look good, feel good, run good, static pages under that for our like core solutions we're saying, and then just listing all our services. So those will start popping up here in a little bit. And then Iris, which is the answering bot, and .bot, which is the project management, should also show up under our tools drop down at some point. So yeah, that's .fun.
That's awesome. Every brand should follow your lead and do all the punny product spin-offs that are available. I think that's a great idea. Well, David, thank you so much for joining. Love your insight, love your attitude, and I definitely would point anybody your way. It sounds like you have an awesome agency. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Reed. I really appreciate it.
Want to stay ahead of what's actually working in marketing right now? Head over to MarketSurge.io and see how we're helping businesses grow smarter, faster, and louder. That's MarketSurge.io, because your next breakthrough shouldn't be a guess.